I'm State Senator Jamie Eldridge. Welcome to another edition of Half Hour on the Hill. Today, my guest is Emily Norton, the Massachusetts Director of the Sierra Club. Emily, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
We've worked for many years on energy and environmental issues, and the Sierra Club is a leader on those issues for obviously going back decades, perhaps centuries. And I'm just wondering, sort of, you know, the legislature just ended its session for the year. We've worked closely on a number of bills. And I'm just want to get, you know, so your thoughts on where do you see Massachusetts going in terms of legislation and policy on the energy front to make sure that we remain the leader in combating climate change?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background about the Sierra Club. I'm sure a lot of folks have heard of the Sierra Club, but we were actually first founded in 1892 by John Muir. There's a sort of iconic photo of John Muir on the in the mountains with Teddy Roosevelt.
Sure.
And it was a 3-day camping trip they took, getting snowed on and everything. And as a result of that, Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican president, established 5 national parks, numerous wildlife refuges, and did a lot of other good things for the environment. So, so we have a long history of environmental policy and activism. In those days it was conservation, and then in the 40s and 50s and 60s we added more work on toxics, and then in the last 10, 20 years the focus has really been on climate change. But as you know, we don't only focus on climate change. We're also doing a lot of work on plastic reduction.
Oh, yeah.
We now have 58 communities across Massachusetts that have banned single-use plastic bags. We have 28.
I definitely want to talk more about that a little
later.
Yeah.
And we have also 28 communities that have banned polystyrene. We're looking at having the state government ban the use of buying bottled water in the State House, which is a waste of money, as well as plastic. But what we are really working on, you know this from all the groups, there are a lot of environmental groups, and I'd say there's sort of an ecosystem. And some groups focus more on putting out white papers and doing the research side of things. Others focus more on just inside the building lobbying on Beacon Hill. While we do both of those things, we particularly focus on grassroots organizing. I think we've both seen the impact that grassroots organizing can have, because if you're an elected official and a state rep or state senator, you don't have maybe a personal interest in the environment for whatever reason, then you probably won't act on it unless you feel pressure. And so that's what we try to do. Is we have, with 60,000 members and supporters across Massachusetts, we help our members get up to speed on these issues. They can be kind of complicated. Energy policy is, you know, in terms of issues that people advocate on, whether it's jobs, healthcare, the economy, it can be kind of intimidating almost. You know, net metering, building codes, municipal aggregation, renewable portfolio standard. Are there any more boring words in the English language? So what we do is we do trainings all over the state and help people get up to speed. I tell them I was a philosophy major. If I can get up to speed on these issues, anyone can. And then so
and I can really attest to the power of those trainings. I mean, I've received emails from constituents that have gone to your trainings, or, you know, trainings in other parts of the state, and they really do have an impact. So
yeah, so that's what we really have been focusing on. And a lot of people don't understand that we do have great laws on the books, the Global Warming Solutions Act in particular. But for example, in that particular law, we have some targets on our greenhouse gas reductions that we are required to meet by 2020 and 2050, and we're already not in compliance with the 2020 law. In fact, the Deval Patrick administration and then the Charlie Baker administration had to be sued in order to force them to write regulations to meet the requirements of this law. So even here in Massachusetts, we have our work cut out for us. I know that you know these folks. I've seen these folks. I've had some conflicts with some of the fossil fuel lobbyists that are very powerful in the State House.
Absolutely.
The Massachusetts Petroleum Council, the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, the electric utilities. They have a lot of power and influence. And so what they don't have is the numbers of members that we have. And so that's what we try to bring to help you and empower you and your colleagues to be able to you know, stand up to fossil fuel lobbyists, to be able to be doing the best for the public good in Massachusetts and making us leaders when it comes to climate change.
Absolutely, and as I say, despite what people think about Massachusetts or perhaps the Massachusetts legislature, it's not really that liberal of a body. There's a lot of work to be
particularly
done.
on these issues, particularly when it comes to environmental issues. Unfortunately, we're not really where we should be. There was actually a bill that was passed a couple years ago on the House side, not the Senate side, that would have decimated our solar industry. Literally, it was a Koch brothers solar bill, the same type of bill that they've been getting passed or attempting to get passed in legislatures across the country. It passed the Massachusetts House 150 to 2. And that was really a wake-up call for a lot of us on the environmental advocacy community. Like, wow, we have to be doing a lot more organizing. If people who are usually our friends didn't realize, or for whatever reason, supported a bill, people don't realize there are 15,000 people in Massachusetts employed in the solar industry, over 100,000 in the clean energy industry. That is more that are employed in the coal industry in the entire country. I know you know all these things, but I think it's really important for people in Acton and elsewhere to understand this is not just, you know, the environment, as important as that is. It's also jobs, it's health. If you live near fossil fuel infrastructure, it is not good for our health. So those are the fights that we have. On the bright side, we're here in Massachusetts. So while our policies are not really where they need to be yet, we have an electorate that strongly believes in these things. There was a poll that WBUR put out a few months ago. 88% of Massachusetts voters, not residents, voters, which to politicians, that's what really matters, is people who show up to vote, believe that climate change is real, caused by humans, and are somewhat or very concerned about it. So if you're a politician in Massachusetts, you are not taking a big risk to be doing more on climate change.
It would arguably help people get elected.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
And so what are some of the policies that you're focused on that you think the legislature should take up to combat climate change or further advance clean energy in Massachusetts?
Yes, so one thing that we've been advocating on is putting a price on carbon. You know, whether it's the whole economy or whether it's sector by sector, particularly in the area of transportation.
Absolutely.
We've been doing a lot, Massachusetts and elsewhere have been doing a lot on power plants and the electric sector and reducing emissions. But when it comes to transportation, I'm happy to say I drove here in my electric car today. So we need to be doing more of electrifying our transportation sector, making it easier for people to take public transit, bike, walk, et cetera, et cetera. So by putting a price particularly on transportation fuels, and then using those funds to help people invest in cleaner ways of getting around. That is one thing that's a priority for us. Another is, we mentioned it earlier, the Renewable Portfolio Standard.
Sure.
3 really boring words. All it is a mandate on electric utilities to have a certain amount of renewable energy in our power grid. It goes up 1% a year. At that rate, we're at 12% this year, we would be at 25% renewable energy by 2030. Nowhere near enough.
Exactly.
And nowhere near where California and New York are. So this is something that we used to be a leader on. California and New York will each be at 50% by 2030, double where we will be at the current rate. So we are encouraging folks to support legislation that would double or even triple that increase to 2% or 3% a year to get us to 50% by 2030, and then ideally all the way to 100%.
Sure.
I also want to call out that we are doing a lot of work in cities and towns because there's so much work that local legislators, mayors can do to set 100% renewable commitments in their own communities, establish, like we talked about, these plastic bag bans and polystyrene bans, more drought-resistant infrastructure. I also, as you know, serve as a city councilor in my hometown of Newton, and so I don't have all the answers on all these things, but I'm learning other things as well that we can be doing. So I don't want to discount if someone just doesn't want to get involved with the state legislature for whatever. There's even things you can do in your own city and town that can be helping us get to where we need to be on climate change.
Absolutely, and I think also the net metering cap as well is
absolutely. Yes, our solar policies really don't reflect where we should be going. When they don't reflect that there's so many jobs in this industry. They don't reflect that the more money that we spend on energy that is homegrown, whether it's energy efficiency, which is a supply of energy, or solar, wind, that's money that stays here. People don't realize we spend $22 billion a year on energy, Massachusetts, and of that, $18 billion leaves the state. So that's not money that's helping develop our own economies. That's helping other states and other countries. We should be keeping more of that money at home, and solar is a great way to do that.
Absolutely, and I'm hearing from a lot of the solar developers, solar builders in my district, that because that net metering cap has been reached in many parts of the state, that it's slowing down the jobs to put up solar on people's homes or bigger projects. So it's having impact on the economy.
Absolutely, and that's because the large electric utilities have a lot of power, and they don't want to see the cap raised. They like solar that they control. They don't like solar that is controlled by others, by small companies or solar companies. And I've certainly heard this as well, that that whether it's individuals that go take jobs, that the whole company goes and leaves and goes to New York or other places that are friendlier, that have friendlier policies. And that doesn't make sense. We should be doing everything we can to roll out the red carpet for solar companies and solar installers.
And what I find particularly hypocritical is a lot of the utilities now are building their own solar while trying to hold back the rest of us from building solar.
Exactly. So, yeah, no, it's a wider conversation that we need to have. The electric utility sector was the policies that they operate under were designed for a different time, not for a time of climate change, and so that's something that that I hope that we can be working on in the coming months and years. Is how do we set the incentives so that they operate in a way that makes sense for the public? We did do this when it comes to efficiency. The electric utilities in Massachusetts don't make more money by selling more electricity. We decoupled their profits from their sales. They actually get a financial incentive to promote more energy efficiency. So that's what we need to be doing in all areas of renewables and everything that we would like to see our utilities doing. Another area that people don't realize is that they make a guaranteed rate of return of 10 to 12% on transmission. Like, who wouldn't love that nowadays? Well, that was established decades ago. It doesn't make sense anymore, but they don't like solar. Solar means less need for transmission for them.
Exactly.
So it's like everywhere, it's always follow the money. And here we want the money, well, I shouldn't say it that way, but I'll just say that we want the incentives to be for more clean energy.
Exactly. So we've talked about energy policy. We're going to take a break and talk next about strictly environmental policy by the Sierra Club. Hello, I'm State Senator Jamie Eldridge here for the second half of Half Hour on the Hill. Having a great conversation with Emily Norton from the Sierra Club. Emily, we talked about energy policy as well as the trainings that the Sierra Club is doing. I also wanted to talk about the more sort of traditional environmental policies that we work together on and Sierra Club is a leader on. And you'd mentioned earlier plastic bags. I have filed the legislation to ban plastic bags statewide, and we continue to build momentum on that. And I think this past week Gloucester banned plastic bags, is that right?
And Ashland.
And Ashland, okay. And so is that the 58th?
58th, yeah, 58 communities now. That's
terrific. By banning plastic bags, whether in communities or the state level, you know, what is that going to address, or who is that going to help? What's the
so sometimes people will say, well, you know, shouldn't it just be done at the state level? Shouldn't it be just done nationally? And unfortunately, that's not how change happens. So it's not like we're really just trying to inconvenience the people of Gloucester or Ashland, but these are sources of plastic pollution that get into the environment. I mean, we've all seen them in trees and parks and so forth, and it's something that is such a matter of short-term convenience. You buy your toothbrush at CVS and this bag helps you for the 5 minutes from CVS to your car, and then you don't need it anymore. So that's why we're really trying to have more of a culture change, that people don't take bags, that they bring their own bags. And the idea is that as more communities do this, then it makes it easier to have it done at the state level, which does make the most sense. Obviously, to have one set of rules. Even the bag manufacturers have told us they don't really want this patchwork. Here it's 4 mills, here it's 2.5 mills, here it's these type of stores are affected, here is these. And we're like, great, then help us get it done statewide.
Exactly.
We are really trying to focus on Boston.
Yes, that would be key.
Mayor Walsh has said that he, wants to be doing some great things on the environment and climate change and so forth. He has not been where we need to be on this issue and a few others. So we think that once we could get Boston, and the city councilors in Boston are terrific. Most of them are very supportive of this.
Yes, especially Councilor O'Malley.
Especially Councilor O'Malley,
yeah.
Councilor Wu. So So we do think if we could get Boston, that would, I mean, you tell me, you're in there, but I think that it would make it easier
as Boston
for you.
sets policy, it often has a cascading effect across the rest of the state and the legislature.
Right, exactly. So, you know, and it's really, you know, it doesn't get as much attention as, say, climate change and so forth, but if you've, I don't know if you've seen any of these videos where they go out into the middle of nowhere in the ocean.
Pacific Open garbage dump. Yep.
Yes, there's this huge, or they'll scoop, this was in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, scoop a little bit of water from the surface, bring it into the boat and look at it. There's plastic on the surface of the ocean, and plastic often sinks, so there's way more at the bottom.
Killing a lot of sea life, turtles,
Yes,
et cetera.
yes, and seeing these photos is just so horrible. And the estimate is that by 2050, there will literally be, by volume, more plastic than fish in the ocean. That's not the kind of future that I want for my children or anyone's children. And so that is why we're focusing on that. And we don't want to just stop with plastic bags, also polystyrene, bottled water, you know, any sort of bottles. Obviously, there was an effort to expand the bottle bill a few years ago, which would have been an amazing help for all of this. But there is a bill on the State House now that hopefully could make some, could get some traction. Randy Hunt from Sandwich, the state rep from Sandwich, and a Republican. He has filed a bill that would add nip bottles alone to the bottle bill. And if you, I'm sure they're in Acton, they're in Newton, they're
you walk down the street, you see them.
Everywhere, these little nip bottles. So if those could be worth 5 cents or 10 cents or whatever, of course people would pick them up and redeem them. So maybe we can make some progress legislatively on that as well.
Absolutely. So I'm feeling a lot of momentum on that. You talked about the ocean and sort of transitioning to water, our rivers and streams. Is that a policy that we have opposed, and the Sierra Club has shown great leadership on, is opposing Governor Baker's effort to sort of gut the enforcement of the Clean Water Act from the EPA to the DEP. And that's an issue that I think sometimes doesn't get a lot of attention, although there was recently a Globe editorial about it. But it's one of the examples of how the administration is really letting us down in terms of making sure we have a clean rivers and clean streams and clean ponds.
Yeah, absolutely in agreement. I actually serve with my city councilor hat on. I serve on the Massachusetts Municipal Association Environmental Policy Committee. And unfortunately, the MMA, from my perspective, is on the wrong side of this issue with Governor Baker. I get it that a lot of cities and towns might prefer to have more flexibility when it comes to
different state laws.
Different state laws, complying with stormwater permits, et cetera, et cetera. But when you have every environmental group and Rivers Association advocating on one side of things, that should make people stand up and take notice. I have noticed also that, certainly for myself, I wasn't even aware of this issue. Folks who work for the city were not where I am on this issue, so I think there is a lot of maybe ignorance about this
lack
policy
of awareness.
at all.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, lack of awareness, that's a better way to put it. So
I'm an elected official, a politician, so.
Yeah, and technically so am I, so I should really get better at these things. So anyway, yes, we do, and it doesn't make any sense. The EPA does so much work, millions of dollars of work on their dime to work on these permits and work with cities and towns. So to have the state take that over at a time when our DEP has had funding and staffing slashed over the last 20 years, it doesn't make any sense, because the money wouldn't be there, let's be realistic, to really realistically take over this program in a robust way.
Exactly.
So, absolutely. Sierra
So there's a bill filed by Governor Baker looking to oppose it in the Environment Committee. And I think your point about municipal officials, and this is a thing that you talked about earlier, is that often municipal officials don't see themselves as influencing state policy. I know as a Newton City Councilor, you've been very vocal, but not every elected official is. And the Sierra Club this year has actually launched an initiative on that front, and I would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, it actually came from my experience as a city councilor and realizing that, okay, I know some things to do in my hometown of Newton because I have the luxury of working for the Sierra Club all day. But for a lot of folks who get elected and might care about these issues but wouldn't necessarily know what to do, you know, they don't never even heard of municipal aggregation, for example. So the Sierra Club has established a climate leadership project where we are recruiting local boards of or selectmen and women, city councilors, mayors to join this, go through a very short training with us on sort of the overview of environmental policies, some of which we've talked about today, and then talk about what are some things you can do in your own community to really just make it easier for people. Because I can speak to this personally, most local officials are part-time, have no staff, so you really have no time to even get up to speed. So the more that the Sierra Club can be helping people with that, and then helping them network with each other, and then also highlighting what they're doing with short videos and our website, and working with our partner organizations to do that as well. That's our goal. So definitely, if there are local elected officials who might be watching this, or that folks who are in your world, although we've already talked about this, already have some names from you, thank you, can get in touch with us, and we would love to work with them on this project.
And what is the name of the project again?
Climate Leadership Project.
Okay.
Yes.
And as I can attest to, as a legislator, to hear from a selectman, to hear from a school committee person, a planning board member, that they oppose, a certain policy or they support a certain bill, really has an impact on legislators being more vocal and then passing statewide legislation.
Absolutely. No, that was part of the impetus as well, is that a local official can do things in their own community. A local official has a relationship with their state delegation. They have to. And also, as there are openings, we would love to see folks who have more of an environmental passion on environmental issues run for seats and rise in political leadership. So that's really what this is about, so that we're not having to argue with our political officials of, like, the public cares about these issues, why are you not doing more? But rather, there'll be more Jamie Eldridges in the state legislature.
Thank you, thank you. And I will say one issue I've seen very powerfully activated at the local level is on gas leaks. There's a number of bills out there to further hold utilities accountable to solving and sealing the gas leaks across Massachusetts, and that the momentum really of that by groups like the Sierra Club, but also Mothers Out Front, is really growing at the local level. Acton right now is doing a whole review of all of its streets, working with a group of experts on gas leaks to map out all the gas leaks in Acton. So it's,
that's great.
It's an inspiring project, and it's happening in many other communities as well.
Yeah, people have no idea. Even if you didn't care about the environment, you might be interested to know that there's so much gas that leaks. In Newton alone, we have over 600 leaks. I don't know what the number here is in Acton, but I'm sure there are a lot of leaks here. And consumers pay for that gas. Gas doesn't even get to your house, so why would the utilities be in a rush to fix them?
Exactly.
So it's really been just this issue that's been ignored for so long. It kills trees, it's unsafe, it wastes money, and it's terrible for the environment, because methane is a much more effective heat-trapping gas than carbon dioxide. So these gas leaks are an incredibly important issue to be working on. Again, we're battling the utilities, which have a lot of power. But certainly Sierra Club and absolutely Mothers Out Front has been just doing, I guess I was going to say yeoman's, but yeowoman's work.
Yes, yes.
On that issue.
And so I've filed one of the bills that would prohibit utilities from charging ratepayers to seal those leaks. And as you said, it's outrageous for them to be able to profit from a problem that they're not addressing.
Yeah. So what are we doing enough to help you on getting that bill passed?
There's been a lot of organizing by number of groups. Sierra Club has been tremendously helpful as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah. You are doing so much in so many areas.
Okay,
so
good.
I greatly appreciate it.
Definitely let us know whatever else we can be doing to help, because that is an important bill.
And I will say, as a Newton City Councilor, as an elected official, are you seeing more municipal officials have an awareness about climate change, about energy, environmental issues?
Oh, absolutely. In the last election, we just had a number of people be elected to the Newton City Council who are much more passionate on environmental issues. So a couple years ago, I'm hopefully no one from Newton, well, I don't mind if they're watching it, they're used to me on this. A couple years ago, I had been leading on an effort, working with our mayor, to have solar carports installed at the Newton Library parking lot.
Sure.
And the vote went down. We were just crushed, like 15 to 8. We do have a big city council. And I don't think that would happen today. Obviously, that was before the Trump election and so forth, but like, really? And it was like, well, they're too ugly. And I had passed around photos of mountaintop removal to show, like, you want to see about an ugly source of energy.
Exactly.
The way coal is produced, the way natural gas is produced, it's pretty ugly. But it still did not move people, but I think today that it would. I think today would be a different result.
Well, that's very encouraging. Emily, thank you so much for being on Half Hour on the Hill.
My pleasure.
And thanks for those who've been following the show today, and look forward to the next episode. And want to thank again Emily Norton, the chapter director of the Sierra Club. Thank you.